This is Personal Injury Court.
Good day, everyone. This is the matter of Young versus Adams. It's my understanding, Mr. and Mrs. Young, that you are suing your next-door neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Adams, for injuries that Mrs. Young sustained when the Adamses' bats got in your house and attacked her. You're asking this court to award you $25,000 for your past medicals and $95,000 for pain and suffering for a total award of $120,000. You were attacked by these kinds of bats?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. and Mrs. Adams, you all don't believe that this is your fault. First of all, you don't think these were your bats, and secondly, if they had cared for themselves, this never would have happened, true?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, well, let's get into the legal sauce. Tell me what led to bats getting in your house.
Yes, Your Honor. So we're avid DIYers, do-it-yourself. We love renovating homes and doing home projects. And so recently my wife thought it was a great idea if we converted the detached garage from my mother so it could be an in-law suite, a granny apartment, so to speak. There's still a lot that needs to be done: insulation, drywall, painting, and you can see we've already done some work in the bathroom, but we had to stop to get a plumbing license.
So at the time that this happened, you weren't finished.
Correct, Your Honor.
And you did all this to make sure your mother would have a place to be.
Yes, Your Honor. My mother is getting old in age and she's divorced. I happen to be an only child, so I wanted her close to me.
That's a beautiful thing. Mr. and Mrs. Adams, how'd y'all come to have bats?
We live a very different lifestyle. We do a lot of homesteading. We very natural life. We go through and we actually have a greenhouse and we plant our own vegetables. We have a chicken coop. We live a very, self-sustaining life.
Minimizing your global footprint, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, what's bats got to do with it?
Both of our properties are backed up to some woods, and there's a river back there which is home to a lot of insects, mainly mosquitoes. And so when we moved in, we noticed that there were a lot of mosquitoes, so much that we couldn't really enjoy ourselves out on our back porch. So we decided to do the all-natural thing, which was to attract bats to our backyard to help control the mosquito population, because bats can eat up to 1,000 mosquitoes per hour.
So bats do better than those mosquito zappers that you get at the hardware store?
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
We're an all-natural family, and unlike the Youngs here, we don't like to spray pesticides or insecticides. We decide to do things as best we can in an all-natural, eco-friendly way.
Mr. and Mrs. Young, did you all know that they were kind of naturalists who,
Oh, yes. I feel like we've actually been quite understanding of their naturalistic ways. They have chicken coops, and you can imagine it's very loud, especially early in the morning, and it smells not so pleasant either.
Take me to the day that you got injured.
I had pneumonia for a couple weeks, and finally I was actually feeling better, and Justin and I actually had a weekend that we were off. So we're going to go ahead and start working on his mother's apartment again. And that day he actually went to the garage to get all the tools, and I went to the apartment by myself, and I went to the bathroom just to clear everything up, because that's where we stopped last time.
Okay.
And I saw this spongy mold on the shower part, and I was like, okay, well, we haven't been there in a couple weeks, understandably, so things might happen. And so I got all my cleaning supplies, and I started cleaning the spot, and it actually jumped up at me, and it wasn't mold, it was actually a bat, and there was wings, and there was it kept biting at me and attacking me, and I thought that it was just that, and then all of a sudden it felt like there were hundreds of bats everywhere, and there was just wings and screaming, and even now sometimes I still I have nightmares about that incident, and I just kind of.
So you originally thought this was a glob of some kind of mold from being left alone. You disturb it, and it's a bat that attacks you?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you said there were others in there?
It felt like there were hundreds at least.
Sounds like a movie.
That's exactly what it felt like, Your Honor. So I was in the garage and then getting the tools and supplies. I hear my wife scream, and it's a bone-chilling scream. I've never heard her sound like this. I run to the detached garage, and I look, and all these bats are just flying out like it's a movie. And so I go in, see my wife. She's in the fetal position, laying in bat poop, guano, essentially. So I'm trying to get to her. I'm beating these bats left and right, trying to get to her. I pick her up, and I rush her to the ER because I think she might have rabies or contracted some other disease from that.
I see the scratches on your wife's arms. I mean, this must have been really bad.
It was, Your Honor. It's been life-changing for us.
This was a real bad attack.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. and Mrs. Adams, y'all are next door. How do bats get into their property?
We hate that this happened to them, but we want to make a point that bats, they don't just randomly attack human beings. They have to be disturbed in order for that to happen. So if you're gonna scrub a bat, of course it's gonna freak out and bite you. They're wild animals.
They say that they're not responsible, but you guys had bat boxes.
You
To
deliberately
attract
attracted
bats.
these bats
To our
property.
bat
We lived there
boxes,
for
not
8
to your
years.
garage.
We lived there for
Well,
8
folks-
years without.
What is a bat box?
Your Honor, this is a bat box right here.
That's a
and
bat box.
This is
Yes.
right here.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. I
So-
wasn't sure what that was.
Yes, this is the bat box. So inside of this is, they're just ridges, like just on the outside of this.
So that
where
they can
they're-
hang.
Right, so they just put their claws in, they just hang upside down and they stay there.
Hold on, please tell me you don't have any bats in there, right?
We
This
don't
one,
have
no,
any,
no.
Oh,
no,
okay,
no,
okay.
No, of
Watch
course
out,
not.
they're
No,
gonna
Y'all gonna have
You want me to
me
run
like
check for you?
like a fifth grader.
no.
So you
It's not
put
show and tell.
you put these bat boxes on your property?
Several, Your Honor.
Yes.
More than one?
Yeah, there's 3
We have
right
3.
by his mother's.
Right
So-
by the
But
fence
again,
line.
they
So
are
the
on our
purpose-
property.
But
The
they are.
purpose for the bat boxes is to have somewhere to stay.
Yes, Your Honor.
So
Your
it's
Honor.
kind of like a bat motel.
Yes, Your Honor.
How many of these bat boxes did you have on your property?
3,
3.
Your Honor.
But this kind of makes y'all Batman and Batwoman, right?
Essentially.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Young, you all believe that the bats belong to them because they invited them to the property.
Yes, Your Honor. It's very obvious. We've been in this house for 8 years, and for the past year, we've seen an uptick in bats. For 7 years, our detached garage has never had any bats.
They actually put bird bats in their front yard, and that apparently, we've done the research, is something that bats are attracted to. It gives them water. It gives them somewhere to chill. It's like a freaking bat oasis or something.
I had a cat come by my house one time, and I was kind to that cat. I gave that cat a can of tuna fish. That became my cat as long as I fed it. Aren't these your bats if you give them a place to stay?
Your Honor,
They
we don't consider these bats our pets. We haven't named them. I assume, Your Honor, did you name the cat?
No, I just called him Cat. Mr. and Mrs. Young, you all are asking this court to reimburse you for $25,000 in medical expenses.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes,
Tell
Your
me
Honor.
about that.
After I rushed her to the ER, she had to get treated for rabies, and it was a
That's
very
really
trying ordeal.
scary.
And she can tell
Have
you
you
more
seen a
about
rabies
that.
shot? The needle is very long, and it's not just one shot. It's like you have to go there several times.
According to your medical papers, you had a condition called histoplasmosis.
Yes, Your Honor. I actually thought that it was just pneumonia again, because I was getting chest pains. I kept coughing. There was one day when Justin and I were just cleaning the house, and I was standing over the sink, and all of a sudden, that's the last thing I remember.
You passed out.
Yes, Your Honor. So while she's cleaning the sink, I just noticed all of a sudden we're mid-conversation and she just goes flat. She had a seizure, Your Honor.
So this was a real sickness following this bat attack.
And not only
Yes, Your
that,
Honor.
but
My
it's,
wife could have died. I mean, it's been terrible.
To understand these bats, because it doesn't sound like any of us really understand what they do, this court has consulted a bat expert, Mr. Robert Hood. Sheriff, will you get Mr. Hood and bring him in the courtroom?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, you know bats, right?
Yes, I've been working with bats for over 20 years now.
How is it possible that a homeowner gets bats in their house?
Well, bats are very small mammals. So as a homeowner, if you're not spending the night in the attic or if you're not outside at dusk and dawn.
That looks like a rat with a good PR agent. It's crawling into holes. That's what bats do? They crawl into the holes in your house?
Yes, so as you can see that if there's a gap the size of your thumb, the bat can fit into it. So it's very difficult for a homeowner to notice that these areas are around their home.
What are the complications of a bat infestation?
One will be the threat of rabies. If you had some bats that are active and came down into the living space, you could be scratched or bitten, and of course,
And
contract
that's how it
rabies.
looks in people's attics?
Yes, that is. So that's a particular attic that I went to that had hundreds of bats flying around. Another problem that you can have is histoplasmosis. It's actually a fungus that grows on large accumulations of guano. So if you are breathing those spores, then of course you could possibly contract histoplasmosis.
And what is guano?
Guano is the fecal matter or the excrement that's left behind from the bats that are roosting.
Well, how do you get rid of them?
Well, essentially a professional comes out, going to look at the home, any type of gap that you have that a thumb can stick into, 306 degrees around the house, about 4 feet off the ground to the tip of the roof, needs to be sealed. And in the place where they're coming in and out, you have to put up an apparatus that allows them to fly out, but they can't re-enter in the morning. So essentially, we evict the bats.
Well, I got to call you Batman. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, y'all.
You are released, sir. Thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Young, how far are these bat boxes from your garage where you were building this apartment?
They're probably 10 feet or closer from the fence
I
line.
would even say closer than.
You submitted a diagram to this court. I want you to explain it to me once we put it up on the plasma here. Could you go over there, Mr. Young? Okay, tell me what we're looking at.
As you can see, this is my mother's apartment, future apartment. This backside is where the bathroom work was being done, the plumbing and whatnot. These are the bat boxes, so they're not very far from the fence line. And then here's the Adams house there.
All right, so you may return to the podium. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
They left the garage door open in this several nights. They're missing that piece of information to you.
So you think it's pretty simple. They could have closed off things and there wouldn't have been a problem, right?
Well, yes, Your Honor. They're back there. They're fixing up their apartment. They should be doing the necessary duties of checking for those holes already.
Mr. and Mrs. Young, you all are asking this court to award you $95,000 for pain and suffering. Tell me about that experience and why I should make that kind of award.
After my wife had the seizure, it's taken a toll on our marriage as well as our home life.
I'm not able to go out and do the home improvement stuff that we've been able to do. I'm also an outdoors person, perhaps not as granola as they are, but I do like the outdoors. And even then, I can't, do things that I used to love. I get coughs a lot.
So you've got some fatigue, some cough, some lethargy that doesn't allow you to do the things with your husband.
And also the medication I have to take for the histoplasmosis. It's also expensive.
I'm a little surprised that you all have not put a little more heart into this.
We did, Your Honor.
Well,
We
hold on.
Yes, sir.
You invited these bats to the property. It is no coincidence that there are bats in their property once you put these boxes out. I think I've heard what I need to hear. I'm ready to render my decision. In every personal injury case such as this, the plaintiff has to prove three things. You've got to prove that the defendants were wrong. That's the first thing. You've got to prove that their wrong caused your harm. The legal issue is, are the Adamses responsible for this harm? Now, you all have put up evidence that you didn't have any problems with bats until they put the bat boxes out near your house. The way this should have worked is you finish the apartment for your mother-in-law, she moves in, and y'all never meet me. Instead, they invite hundreds of bats to the party. One or more or 100 gets into your place. You go up to clean and disturb one of these bats, and you are viciously attacked. The law can compensate you by allowing a money award. However, the law does not relieve you of the emotional burden. It relieves you of the financial burden, doesn't relieve you of the physical burden. So I understand this is a weight on you in a bunch of respects. You all look at me with wonderment and say, how could this be our fault? These are wild animals. We were doing a good thing. We didn't want to go get a bug zapper. We invited bats. They would do it the natural way. In fact, these bat boxes were a benefit to the Youngses. There is harm, but frankly, folks, inviting bats to your property is not a wrong. Does it cause us to have certain opinions about things? But they did not break the law, and there's nothing that says that this was irresponsible. Bats can get into anyone's home when they leave it open. Your home was left open. I don't blame you, but just like they invited the bats with the boxes, you invited the bats with your home being open. I find you did not prove that the Adamses were wrong, and I find against you and in their favor, despite how much I feel for what you all have been through, I find in your favor. That's my final verdict, and this matter is adjourned. Our attorneys across America just viewed this case for the first time. Let's hear what Andrew Finkelstein has to say.
Interesting case. The big question, did the defendants create a condition on their property that attracted bats and allowed them to nest in the couple's garage? The bats are naturally occurring animals in the environment, and the plaintiffs left the garage door and the renovations open, which allowed the bats to enter. The plaintiff did not prove the defendant actions were the proximate cause of the bats inhabiting their garage.